And we're back. This is the second part of a ranking of FF14's normal trials and normal raids. If you somehow have found video 2 before video 1, I mean, listen, it's your choice, man. Just saying, I'm not going to go through all the rigmarole to lead up to it again and go over how this was all sorted and stuff. If you want that, go back and watch the first one. But I'm not your dad, I can't really tell you what to do. So, let's kick it off with the mid-tier, the fights that are, you know, honestly, at this point, already reaching pretty alright. With number 64. Good King Moogle-Mog, if I haven't misread my list, is the third best fight. The third best fight out of A Realm Reborn. And I am referring to the remade version of it, and it's probably because it was remade that I consider it really solid. It still keeps the chaos of the first phase, all the different Moogles coming in one by one, and then doing all the different mechanics, although they now have more different mechanics. And then you get Phase 2, which is actually a mini version of a fight that comes much later in the game, that we will also be discussing, but basically involves now all that stuff is getting combo attacked on you while you're fighting the king. And I think that's neat. I think thematically it's really fun for a boss fight, especially to have the Moogles basically all have like classic FF classes. It's decently fun and engaging, especially by A Realm Reborn standards. The music is the music. This song is an absolute classic that was just like, for many people, this was the point at which we were like, oh, okay, Soken and his sound team are actually just going to be like this. So I think it just barely squeaks into the middle. Cecil said, isn't he now the first 8-man trial in the main story quest? Correct! Unless you go out of your way to do the hard mode primals before this is the first 8-man content you will do. Okay. 63. It's Blaster, and Brawler, and Swindler, and Vortexer. The Robot Gauntlet is actually kind of a really neat and fun little fight. It's basically 4 mini-bosses that each are like a minute long these days, but each of them comes with completely distinctive attacks and mechanics going on. And I kind of like a lot of them. Particularly Blaster is still really fun. I think it's Swindler. The one with the laser beams. He's really fun because people still don't know how to tell when he's loading up a tank buster or when he's loading up the party should stack buster, and people just die, and it's really funny. Also, like, the different floor heights, the enumeration, there's Super Cyclone and freezing the vortex. If you need to do that, you can skip that. The point is this is just like an interestingly varied fight. Yeah, I don't know. I really like it. As I said, you really forget how often Locust plays for Alexander. I think this is the highest placing fight that plays Locust. So this should be the last time you hear this track. It's the Zord Gauntlet before the Megazord. And viewers like you. And Knuckles. Yeah. It's just very different because every single raid series afterwards, they did a complete set of new music for each tier, and they hadn't done that yet for Alexander, so. Number 62. It's X-Death. Once again, you can't call me biased about FF5 related fights. Okay, so like the Savage version of this fight is absolutely fantastic. We're not here to talk about the Savage version. The normal version isn't the worst. It's decently fun. Like, there is a lot of variety in the different attacks, and he just sort of mixes and matches them however he pleases. Like, all of them kind of still have to be respected. Like, you can heal through a lot of them, but also eat too many of them from not paying attention, and you will eat the floor for it. His mechanics aren't super original, but the way he varies them can be fun. The thing that actually drags this fight down a little bit for me, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this, but I actually really hate this remix of X-Death's boss theme. It's so weak. If you know the original version of this track, like, it's got these crazy drums that are just absolutely going off, and this version of the fight is just so underwhelming most of the time in the music, and just, like, it disappoints me specifically, so I gave it the worst audio of Stormblood demerit. The remix of Neo X-Death theme is amazing, but again, we're not talking the Savage, we're talking the normal version, and X-Death's just fine. Yeah, the FF5 bias has kicked in, but not to the fight's credit. Okay. 61 might get people a little fired up, but I think you'll understand where I'm coming from. So, King Thornton and the Knights of the Round is a visually gorgeous fight with awesome music going on. And a really cool design in that he does what most of the final bosses of this game do, which is borrow a bit of everything beforehand and sort of put you through a final boss exam of like, hey, here's all the things you should know by now. Can you do them? And like, that's sort of fun, and I don't mind the design, and he's still getting a 17 out of 30, but I had one group once that actively stood in everything they could. Somehow, we actually had everybody dead partway through the Knights of the Round phase. I was the only person alive as a white mage, and we still didn't wipe. And that's the only people in years that I have seen hit the floor during the King Thornton fight. Was a group actively trying to die. It stops being a final boss exam when you can pass with an F. If this fight wasn't so goddamn trivial, it could actually be a really cool fight. But I think even an item level cap fix wouldn't necessarily save much. People saying they expected this to be lower, that's... yeah. Like, the thing is there's so much stuff about this fight that just objectively is really well done. It just falls on its face. And the funny thing is I'm not even sure an item level sync would necessarily fix this fight, because it was easy on release. It would be not completely trivial, but it would still be really easy. Number 60. The Cloud of Darkness. Hey, remember how I was just complaining about music a couple fights ago? Why is this track... why is the FF8 regular battle theme being used for the Eden version of Cloud of Darkness? I don't even dislike this track, but why did this happen? the rest of the fight's fantastic. I actually really, really like this fight. Like, the different phases are all very distinctive and unique and come with different spins on her basic patterns. The panel mechanics a blast. Like, the forest and the claustrophobia, needing to pay attention to where you go for the thin safe zones, that's cool. Like, it's a really active fight. It's visually really nice with the transforming arena and all the spell effects and stuff. Just... why this music? Why did this happen this way? Cecil said, to be fair, did FF3 have good music to pull from? You put that back in your mouth. Also, this game already has a great mix of FF3's final boss theme in the World of Darkness. And, like, she already has her own original final boss theme. Like, they're just... Okay, I'm going on to 59 before I get hung up on this too much longer. It's the what the hell is that thing, by which I mean the hippocampus. Design-wise, I think this fight is really cool. Like, the multiple tells on the model that need to be cross-referenced, the use of the shape of the mechanic specifically, or shape of the mechanic, the shape of the arena transforming over the course of the fight, constantly cutting things off. It's really easy for people to get caught by AoEs in this fight, or just get dunked by the mechanics, forcing you to constantly spread and then stack and then spread in limited spaces. It's a really, honestly, fun fight that, even as it's gotten overgeared, has stayed really fun. My problem with the fight is that I did have to give something the worst audio out of Pandemonium, and I chose this one because I think it has the least impressive sound design on top of having, you know, the least of the music tracks in Pandemonium, which kind of drags it down a little bit. Like, if it wasn't for that, there's enough of these fights right now that are all going to be scoring 17 out of 30 that this would actually jump up several places. And I personally really enjoy this fight. We're just already hitting 17 out of 30. It's going to be hard for fights that have big underwhelming parts to them in presentation or in gameplay, etc. It's going to be hard for them to score much higher than this mid-grade. Sage said this might be one of my favorite fights in Endwalker. On a personal note, yeah, probably. I can buy that. Falcio pinned. Dog. Yep. Falcio, I want to take you to this fight sometime. You've got a bunch of fun fights left to discover in the game, and this is one of them. Okay. 58. The other fight that uses the FF8 random battle theme, which also feels out of place when you know how big of a lore deal this fight is. Also, dog. This fight is baller as hell. I'm going to tell you right now, it's down low, purely because on like a presentational and musical aspect, it's just not hitting it for Shadowbringers. Like, it's really weak in the presentation. This is just Lakeland. This is just an arena set in Lakeland. That said, like, this fight's really cool. It's still really dangerous because it didn't really get outgeared. It's still really easy to screw up the mechanics on and rack up foam stacks. It has a unique gimmick that it puts a bunch of different spins on. It's actually pretty fast-paced. You have to constantly keep track of it to keep track of what's actually going on. I love this as a fight. You will notice that it is earning its 17 out of 30 purely off of the strength of the fight alone. But all the presentational stuff just isn't there. Necromancer, I would I wish I did this fight more, but I only went in a couple of times and forgot most of it. To be fair, relearning the fight on the fly is part of the most fun of it to me. Cecil said, knowing the true form of that dog, still would. You know what? I can respect that. 57. Susanoo. So this fight is this is kind of almost an inversion. The fight side of it is fine. Like, I'm gonna be honest, it's basically like 2 or 3 attacks just repeated over and over again. They get slightly more involved. But the mechanical side of this fight is not necessarily the most amazing. The presentational side of this fight is fantastic. Like, the phase change mechanics, and the whole phase change in general, with the giant Susanoo showing up and slamming his sword down and somebody having to intercept it, is one of the coolest bits in the game. And, like, that absolutely amplifies this up to the spot that it has earned. Because this is just cool. I'm not particularly fond of the music, though. It is carried by just let the revelry commence. It's fine, but kind of like Lakshmi, it's a little under-delivering, but unlike Lakshmi, it actually has things going on. The audio score is purely that I don't really care for the 3 music tracks that are used throughout this fight. They're kind of really repetitive to me. Looking back and seeing, first of all, how dare you? Oh, you put this right back in your whore mouth? I can see people loving this fight for the personality of it. That's very fair. How dare I have a different opinion? Don't worry. I did say at the beginning of this, fight me. It's funny, and it makes for better content or something like that. Also, that's why I'm doing it live on Twitch, so we can chat like this. Okay, the music's fading out, so 56. Ashura is honestly a better fight than I was expecting. Like, this was a fight that originated as a FanFest fight. And so it couldn't be anything too crazy and unusual. And all the building pieces of this fight are really, really basic. However, having said that, the fight is absolutely gorgeous. It has so many more spell effects than it needs to going on. The music slaps. I don't care if it's also reused for a couple dungeon bosses. And the pace of the mechanics is generally pretty good too. Like, it isn't super hard, but also, I see people die a lot more to this than you would think. You'll notice that none of those scores individually are exceptional, especially the design score. But just, Ashura is just really good across the board. Like, or at least not really dropping the ball on anything besides not being super original. So, like, I looked at it, I'm like, huh. Yeah? The robot said, the fact that I cleared this with 3 people at FanFest just dunks its quality down for me. Oh, you could clear this with 1 person. But, you know, I still think it's a solidly mid-tier fight. We're not quite at the halfway mark. This is technically still on the lower half of the fights of the game. But I've learned I quite like the Ashura fight. We're already on fights I like. Okay, 55. So the diamond weapon is the one that I'm putting the lowest of the various weapon quest lines. in the weapons in general. And, like, I still feel a little bit odd about it. Because in a lot of ways, this fight is, like, it has a really unique arena. And it has some interesting and unique mechanisms going on in it. It's decently, reasonably paced. Like, it is a solid fight, but I feel like it's missing something that really pops. Like, the visual design of the fight, without a full, like, phase transformation and everything, like, yeah, technically he turns into Robo-Ifrit, but, like, The fight is missing that something extra that really pushes it. And, like, the music is okay, but it's just the one track. I don't know. I enjoy this fight. But also I looked at the scores afterwards and I'm like, is that really the worst of them? And I'm like, okay, but what would be the thing that makes it better? Yeah, I could see somebody liking this fight a lot. Just for me, for whatever reason, it just has never really been up there. Number 54. Before that, the robot said, the first time I cleared this, I went, that's it? There's no second phase? Exactly. Okay. Number 54 has been one of my favorite fights in the game for 10 years. So the thing about this fight is, technically it's just the Titan fight, but more. It's just, that's fun. Like, more arena removal means smaller arena, means more crazy nonsense, means more people getting knocked off. Like, it is still the spiciest fight in A Realm Reborn. It's still really easy to see people die from, primarily from landslides, but other mechanics. It's still really fun. Like, the little breaks in the fight are the only breaks you really get. I think the biggest problem is that it still just sort of lacks the visual punch that I want from the fight. Like, it's still an early ARR fight. But, like, this is probably the most fun boss fight in A Realm Reborn. It's the second highest on the list. It's the second highest ARR fight we've come so far. Aubert said, is it wrong if I miss that falling off completely removed you for the poll? Yeah. Necromancer said, I miss when the camera didn't even go up to watch the fight. You were just down there. Yep. Just removed from the fight, forced to acknowledge and look at your sins. I remember the days when people used to memorize the rotation on this fight to have any chance because we were all very bad at the game. Okay. 53. Cruise Chaser. Or if you know FF9, Arc. Or if you know Cruise Chaser, Blasty. Pick your name. This fight's actually pretty fun in design. There's a bunch of distinctive different phases to it. Even if you technically skip the, like, pseudo-ad phase that's supposed to happen partway through. The cleaves are still, like, fairly spicy. Like, the damage in general in this fight is actually really spicy for being an Alexander fight. Most of the Alexander fights have been very low threat. This one kills people during its last phase. The chaos of the last phase, the constant dot, etc. And especially if Propeller Wind goes off. If Propeller Wind goes off, chances are most of your party is barely surviving and is also confused and going to beat the crap out of each other. So I see parties wipe on this surprisingly, like, semi-regularly. It's kind of lacking from just still being Alexandrian. Exponential entropy isn't Locus, but it's also kind of repetitive. Yeah, Chris Chaser's fine. Locust Phase 2. I'm never excited to be here besides the music, but I'm always happy to get it in my roulettes. Yeah, pretty much. Okay, let's go to 52. Oh, Rubicante. First off, I am still not over the fact that they went out of their way to get Hyodane to do a remix of the Four Fiends theme again and ascend the meme. Absolutely fantastic. The fight is fairly spicy. It has, like, a decent amount of mechanics to it. Like, there is the whole, like, transformed phase, there's the add phase. The transformed phase is actually a little bit, great. It's really chaotic and fast-paced. My problem with the fight, and the part that holds it back, is that the puzzle mechanics, like, the whole circular puzzle thing, it just ain't pulling it. Not only is it an incredibly simple puzzle to solve in normal mode, but he also spends 15 minutes transforming the arena, and then you have like 30 seconds to figure out where to stand. And I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it slows the pace down of the fight to a crawl. The visuals of him like tearing open the rift in space and having just the giant fire giants in the back is really cool. But yeah. Aubert said, oh, this remix is the best one. Yeah, the remix is fantastic. There are lyrics to this, and we all thought it was just Oz. Yeah, nope, there's actual lyrics to this. Of course there are. I think this is the lowest placing of the post-Endwalker trials? Yeah. Which says something, because this is 52. So the biggest problem with the puzzle mechanics is it's the same patterns in the same order. At some point, you don't even need to solve them. Yeah, basically, there is like a guaranteed safe spot that always works in normal, even despite what the pattern might be. It's so. Anyway, 51 is Themis. You have to understand that this was the 11th fight of a raid tier, and it's 99% a repeat of the 11th fight of the last raid tier. And I really hate that. Like, they couldn't come up with something more than just doing Fatebreaker again? I mean, Fatebreaker's a baller fight, you're gonna see it way higher on this list, but it's Fatebreaker again. Now, in spite of my beef about the fight, and its design being primarily the same, the arena's gorgeous, the spell effects are fantastic, the music is on point, it has voice acting, like, all the presentational stuff is awesome. It's just, we've done this before. So. Flux said, I was also disappointed in this fight. It's just in-out mechanic, the fight. Yeah. Yeah. Sage said, love the lore. The fight's a nothing burger. Yeah, that's... yeah. I don't want to hate this fight as much as I do, but it just... Once again, kind of like Hegemony, there's certain times where you look at the fight design in Endwalker and you're like, huh. Yeah, I think we need some spice again. Oh yeah, Dustin, I hope you're enjoying, like, hearing a bunch of this music. Trials and Raids are where they go all out on the music. And yeah, this track's just gorgeous. Okay. Number 50 is a fight somebody mentioned earlier. Wondering where it would place. Yeah, I'll admit, sometimes I forget that Rathalos from Monster Hunter is a boss fight in 14. And unlike other collab events, is permanent content. And I kind of wish more collab stuff that they've done had gotten permanent content added, to be honest. So here's the thing with the Rathalos fight. I think this is our first 10 out of 10 design. This fight works in so many cool things from Monster Hunter, actually having to use, like, a designated potion to heal after a certain point. Having no aggro list so that it's actually working like Monster Hunter and you have to pay attention to the boss. Like, shearing off the boss's tail, as like, knocking it down, and, like, there's so much cool stuff here. It doesn't necessarily work with 14's, like, netcode and design. It feels like Monster Hunter Unite 2 hitboxes, but now with lag, which is awful. And then, just in general, I don't think the presentational aspects are too big. The audio side, especially, like, I don't care for Monster Hunter music very much. So, like, a really cool design fight, not really my favorite. It just, the reality of this fight just doesn't work so well. Tomonaki said, I'm fine with this as the normal version. The extreme version can burn for eternity. You know, I kind of like the extreme version a bit better, but I absolutely understand why. Yoshi said, Monster Hunter is good music, but once you've heard the main theme once, you've heard it 200 times. Yep. Dustin, I will compile you a best of 14's massive OST at some point. Especially once Dawntrail's out and we have the OST for that. Okay. 49. It's Zervin. The first of the Warring Triad to appear on this list. There's just something about the last parts of the trial side stories always feeling a little bit underwhelming. And the thing is I'm not even sure why. Like, he has the whole multiple phases and the cool, like, destroying the initial arena, and then, like, all the different phases down at the bottom, and, like, I don't know what it is. I feel like this fight just is a bunch of mechanics, though, without necessarily a whole lot of identity to them. Like, I'm still not sure what Zervin's deal is. In lore, in the fight, in how he does his mechanics. Theoretically, there's a theme of fire and ice going on, but, like, like, you'll notice the scores. I don't have a single major thing to ding Zervin on. And it was really cool that he was the first fight to, like, do a full mid-battle seize the camera cutscene attack. But also, there's nothing in Zervin that I feel particularly strongly about. So he's just here. I just realized we're already at 19 out of 30 for potential scores, so still doing pretty well. About to hit the halfway mark of the fight, but a whole lot of Skip Sword disband in the chat. Good and evil, the war eternal. Yeah, he has a voice line. It's like, he's not bad, just... Okay. Speaking of the halfway mark of the fight, here's the one who just barely falls into the bottom half, I think, mathematically. No, this would be the first of the top half. 48. Midgard Sormer is... objectively, the process of doing his fight is a lot of fun. I like it a lot. There's a lot of variety in it. It's very, very active. It's very, very deadly. There's a lot of corpses during the fight. And if you don't beat the DPS check before he drops AoEs under everybody and then goes into Akmorn, there's going to be more corpses. It'll be funny. But... weirdly, I don't have that much to say in terms of, oh, this fight's got, unique mechanisms, because it kind of has one. The visual of this fight is pretty much all in the effects, but it's not really... I don't know, I've always felt underwhelmed by the presentational side of this fight above anything else. It fails to just get me psyched. And maybe it's just that Primogenitor is, really gorgeous, but also mismatched for the high pace of this fight. And maybe it's just that I'm still bitter about Savage. I don't know. Cecil said, hey, so remember when Omega told you about his kind's war on the Dragon Star and how it left a planet blasted hellscape, and you see this arena lines up exactly with the blasted Dragon Star? Yeah. This should be such a big, cool fight, fighting Midgard Sormer at its prime, but... Sage said, I'll say it, this one's all lore again, because I have the criticism you usually have with end-tier fights. It's a bunch of repeat stuff with nothing really making it unique. Yeah, it's... other than his, big... multi-spin tail for his one attack. I enjoy doing the fight, but it's not popping off. But for a fight that kind of does pop off for where it shows up, here's 47. Okay, so let's talk about Eden Prime. They went so ham on the first fight of the Eden Raid series. They did not have to go this crazy on the visuals and the audio. And also just the intensity of the fight. It isn't actually that crazy, except for this specific laser beam sequence on screen here, where you are just getting blasted again and again and again and again. I think the thing that really throws me the most about Eden Prime, though, is, all the Prime fights were supposed to be end fights of the tier, and then we get into the next raid, and the Eden Prime is the starter, and we realize we have no idea where the fight is where the series is going. They replicate the entire frickin' GF summon, by the way. Just because they can. Mid-fight, screw it. I remember when this came out, I was convinced that they were going to throw us a curveball, and in the Savage version, they were going to do the fights in reverse order, and we were going to end on Eden Prime as the end boss of the initial, Savage tier. And that's not how it happened. Anyway, this fight isn't super spicy or super difficult or anything, and it's a little bit slow-paced, but I really love it, and it still looks fantastic. Sage said undervalued, especially when you compare it to any other first tier for a raid series. Oh yeah, we've covered all the other first tiers. They were down in the bottom third of the list, and here's this in the top half. Okay. What is next? Number 46. Chaos. is actually just a overall really solid, really cool fight. Like, you get 4 different phases, basically, that are based on the different elements that change up the limitations of the arena you have to stand in, and end up changing up how the mechanics, like, work around it. It's kind of similar pieces, but the fact that they are transformed again and again by how the arena is shaped, the fact that some of them can be surprisingly dangerous and deadly, like the solid pace of the fight. The visual and music isn't necessarily anything to super scoff at, though it's not bad either. Chaos is just a pretty solid fight overall. Like, I don't have necessarily that much to say, he's just well done. Bear said, now I need a mod that changes Dark to be Jack. Yep. I had to fish out that GIF for it. Cecil said, I mean, who else was going to be the final boss of the Nostalgia Raid? Honestly, that was a really good question, and we were all having a whole lot of debates about that. I kind of wish he was actually, like, the second or third fight in the tier, in a way, so that he got to be a little bit more special. But, oh well. 45. Va3's piano player. I'm sorry, I mean Innocence. Yeah, I don't know what the piano player was doing in this track, but dear lord. Honestly, I probably should have given this a perfect score for audio, because damn, this track. Yeah, it's a fine fight. I think that, like, most of it is fairly simple. There isn't actually that much new coming on through the fight. Most of its design score is just the multiple different phases that the fight goes through. Like, it is visually fairly impressive. It is well-paced. It isn't necessarily doing anything super new, but it is well-paced and keeps you active. And of course, the big part that everybody remembers partway through is the transformation. Which just, I won't lie, they showed off Innocence during the fan fest. By the time I got here in the story, I had completely forgotten what Innocence's design was. And so I was not ready for the transformation either. It's just a generally, like, pretty solid fight. Maybe not the spiciest, especially for being a level 79 fight, but, like, it's good. People in the chat saying, I see now! This is the passion of my ascension! Yup. Oh no, he's hot. The classic line. Still see that posted in party chat almost every time we go into this fight. Yoshi said, I mostly remember comments of, he can walk? Oof. Okay. 44. Guardian's gonna continue this trend of just, like, really overall solid fights. It's not, like, the most presentationally awesome fight, although, like, for nostalgia reasons, I think it's really cool to be up there on Kefka's Tower, but it's also kind of not the most exciting if you don't have that specific attachment. What is cool about this fight is all of the different phases and mechanics, including, like, a bunch of interesting and, like, unique ones to him, introducing things like the missiles and stuff too. The body checks still make this fight very dangerous. It's very possible for things to spiral pretty roughly out of control without necessarily relying on instantly deleting people. It's just people will screw up enough mechanics. there's a ton of variety with the different phases he goes through. I really like the Guardian fight just on a purely mechanical level, basically. Cecil said, honestly, could have used more summons. I don't think you're necessarily wrong. I kind of wish the Bibliotaph had have been another FF6 boss cameo. But it's fine enough. Okay, 43. It's Byakko, who I think him being the first of the four lords makes this like the trial series that has lasted the longest without showing up on this. And I've kind of just sort of decided I dislike Byakko the most and have him as the lower scores. And like a lot of it just has to do with the fight kind of being defanged. Part of it has to do with the fact that the whole thrown up in a tornado and getting bullet held sequence is honestly really slow and boring. It's really cool. But it absolutely like drags the pace of the fight to a screeching halt. It's like otherwise the fight is fine. Like the rest of it is well paced. The rest of it has fun stuff like the grabs. The visuals aren't bad. The audio is fine. I don't super care for the music, but his voice acting does help. Yeah, it's Byakko. We're at like 20 out of 30 by now. Like, we're at good fights, and that's that. Flex said he makes the best chair. Correct. Yoshi said, Furry Awakening, new generation. Falcio said leg day. Yeah, dude does not work his legs. Okay. 42. Proto Carbuncle. Okay, maybe a little bit of FF5 bias, because this is the FF5 Carbuncle specifically. Also, dog. So first off, kind of like Eden Prime, went way too ham on the visuals of this fight for being the opening of a raid set. Like, the whole fact that he just breaks the arena halfway through and you fall into an entirely different area is so unnecessary, but so cool. All the reflect shenanigans visually bouncing around the arena is really neat. I do wish they did more with the reflect mechanic in normal, but it's still there. Devour's pretty iconic for being just, no, this mechanic kills you. Not, I just generally really like the Proto Carbuncle fight. It's very cool, it's very cinematic, it's fun, it's dangerous. They went a little more ham than they needed to on the presentation, and that just helps punch it up into the top half of the list. Necromancer said, Naughty Carbuncle of the Week, Proto Carbuncle, Toxic crunched my ass. Yep. Cecil says, I still maintain that the vocals should have kicked in during Phase 2. I think that would have been a cool touch. I kind of get why it doesn't, because it's supposed to be like the voice of the Key Wardens, and Proto Carbuncle is not the Key Warden, but... okay. What's next? 41. It's Sephiroth, the Fiend. So... this, if it wasn't for the, honestly, like, the first half of the fight, this could have placed even higher. The first half of the fight is not super great. Like, it's actually, like, 2 attacks on loop, and they're really basic and boring. So, like, there's that, then you get the ads, but then comes the iconic part where, he pulls up everything. or pulls himself up, and he's just huge. And then the real fight starts, and you're getting slammed around, and like the dude's like literally coming down and just like trying to blow you off the platform, and it's so damn cool. So yeah, if it wasn't for the first phase, Sephiroth would probably come even higher, but it does get hindered by that a little bit. Hello to Retro and if you are curious, yeah, Square and Enix have been one company for 2 decades. There is no such thing as Square and Enix as separate entities anymore. Everything is Square Enix. I will keep that in mind when I build that playlist for you, Dustin. This one is, this one's just a classic because of how it kicks in and nobody's ready for it. And it's so good with the intensity of the fight. Okay. 40. Okay. So Halicarnassus might be a bit of FF5 bias. But I unironically think this is one of the best design fights in the game. Like, it has unique mechanics. It has the whole roll check. It has the sand maze stuff. It regularly marks phase transitions with different mechanics by changing the floor design, which is done even more so in Savage. Like, it's kind of a shame that this fight is over so much faster these days because we just do so much damage. Like, you can skip the sand maze, and I think that's such a waste. But, like, this fight's great. I love this fight so much. Like, even just the normal version of it, I wish it was a Savage version. The Savage version is still one of my favorites in the game. But, like, this is just excellently paced. It's literally just held back by being so easy. And I guess the presentation isn't super insane. Like, it's just kind of treated as a Delta Escape filler fight, so... Cecil said, escaping the sand maze before she finishes her tea is cute, but I never see any group fail to do that. It's pretty easy to do it correctly, like, even if you're solving it on the moment, but... yeah. Okay. Where is 39? Leviathan... parentheses, Eden. This is the first of the Primal Revisits in Eden that we're covering on this, and the worst of them is at 39th place because they all kinda kick ass. Like, the complete reimaginings of all of their mechanics and reworking in all these different like, bits and pieces, from different fights throughout the game, on the concept that it's our memories being mixed with all these different bits and pieces is really cool. They get cool new remixes. Like, there's just a lot to, like, praise here. The biggest thing Leviathan has going against it is just that it's relatively, like, of them, it's definitely the least dangerous. Like, other than the occasional instant kill thing, which is really clearly marked generally in this fight, you're probably not going to see deaths, and otherwise it's great. Sage said, if the music isn't Five I Riot, I'm going to go burn down Canada. Don't worry. Global warming has happened. This country does that to itself. Yoshi said Eden is peak 8-man raid content. I won't hear otherwise. Yeah, Eden was just overall a really good raid. We've still got quite a few fights from it to show up on this list. Okay. Let's do 38. So, Seiryu kind of broke the curse in a way. I used to think Seiryu was the least of the Four Lords questline. Like, it was missing the whole minigame in the middle that the others did. I didn't, like, it doesn't have vocals to its music. I didn't really think that much of it. And then, weirdly, over time, I have grown significantly on this fight, and I could probably put it higher. Like, all the thematic stuff weaving into the fight, the summoning of all the different familiars to attack you, like, the arena that actually uses the whole you could be knocked off, but you can just get stunned and then come back on. The chaotic ad phase, him summoning Bongo Cat in the middle of the fight. There's a lot of cool stuff here that, like, every time I come back to this fight, I'm like, why do I not care that much for this fight? And probably could have scored even higher. Like, this track alone is growing on me just as I listen to it again now, so, like, yeah. Sage said, Seiryu's the fight I always forget I enjoy until I get thrown in there and I'm like, oh yeah, I love this fight. Yeah. Cecil said, it has a great sense of escalation. That is a very good way of pointing it out. Yeah. Yoshi said, oh, Aramitama. Yep. Okay. 37. It's Yojimbo, everybody's favorite Final Fantasy X Aeon. I'm really glad we got an actual fight with this dude instead of just a dungeon boss, and just fucking kidding, it's Gilgamesh. So I have to say, I don't know how they hid this one. This was a FanFest fight. This was at FanFest, months before it went into the game, including the reveal that it was Gilgamesh in the story the entire time posing as Yojimbo. And nobody leaked it, and I don't know how they pulled that off. Also, this fight will actually kick your party's ass. Like, there are parts of this fight, there are specific combos of attacks that have body counts, that are really difficult to dodge, that are so easy to screw up. Like, this is probably one of the, like, spicier fights in Stormblood, especially spicier among the Trials list in general. It's like, it's really good. Yeah. Cecil said, honestly, I would push this in my top 10. Like, I know it's not that level of a fight, but I love it that goddamn much. Yeah, no, this fight is so much personality. Sage said, if this is not at least a 4 danger, I'm going to burn down Canada. Well, good news. 36. Coquitos. So, like, technically this fight isn't super original or anything. There's, like, a couple unique little spins on things. But, like, a lack of originality is my only real beef with this fight. Everything else is really solid. And I love the framework of just it devouring souls in the live stream and then taking on phases based around those. like, just going full beast mode when it consumes a behemoth's soul, and, like, the mage phase and everything is just very cool theming and keeps things very distinctive, although the transitions between phases do slow it down a little bit. The music, by the way, I love all of the music from the final tier of Pandemonium, but this one, the theme of the twerking cryptids, is awesome. Yeah, it's just a really good fight. The Little Billy said, do you subscribe to the theory that the mage and martialists are Scylla and Gladiolus? Not necessarily, but I don't think it's out of the question. I'm kind of curious to know if an eventually Encyclopedia Eorzea or something will actually bother confirming it. Or, like, confirming some other piece of information that might link it. Or maybe it's just somebody in general that they're gonna, like, I don't know, maybe years down the line, we will find out about the person that was actually supposed to have been. Sage said, I hate that I can't listen to this song without thinking of that video. You know the one. I sure do. 35th place, also from Pandemonium. So, Hephaestus is overall a really solid fight. Like, right as we're hitting this tier, it's like, okay, it's hard for me to actually ding the fights too much on a design sense. It isn't exceptional. But, like, the multiple phases, especially based around the different transformations, which I want to say when it comes to the transformations, the grotesqueness of them is definitely carrying the visuals of this fight. I don't really care for the arena at all. It's kind of really boring. The music is alright. I'm not as enthused about it as I really thought I would be, for the fact that it's like 3 different Ascian-related motifs all strung together with one guitar, etc. It's like, it's a solid fight. It's 21 out of 30, which we've been at for a little bit, and I've been having to make decisions about, like, which one does or doesn't place relative to each other, and I like the fight. I'm just not super enthused about it. But I do really enjoy it. Cecil said, reminder, La Habrea is the only Ascian we know who canonically got it on. Okay. Where are we on the list here? 34. Oh man, this is a fight that I'm sorry did not make the top third, but it's still sitting at the 21 out of 30. So Phantom Train is one of the most unique and well-designed fights in the game, I think. This fight is just a really incredibly wrapped together piece of work in terms of, like, the integration of the ghosts, of running across the train, of, like, getting dragged inside of it and having to deal with that. There's so much cool. Like, the only flavor thing that went unserved was you don't suplex the train, which is unfortunate. There's even the Easter egg that sometimes you run into Siegfried in the train cars, which is so cool. The thing that holds the Phantom Train back from being one of the best fights in the game is that it's just so damn easy. Like, a lot of the attacks are, like, only a couple people actually have to do much for them. and the rest of the party just stands around treating the boss as a striking dummy, while, like, one person runs around with a ghost and 2 people run around with lamps, for instance. And the fight's, like, over almost immediately after the phase change now, so, like... Otherwise, I really love the Phantom Train fight. I just wish it had a little bit more bite and a better pace. Also, hello to those of you who have shown up. This leg of the recording is almost over, but we've got one more to go. In the last one that missed out on the top third of the list. Ravana, the battle bug who has a theme song about how cool it is to be a battle bug. Ravana's a really cool fight. Like, especially for Heaven's Ward, this fight has a ton of variety going on, goes through a ton of different mechanics. He's got really unique music, with, like, the whole waltz theme. Like, the visuals are really big and impactful and cool. You can, in fact, die during this fight. It is spicier than most of the fights you have done prior to it, back in Realm Reborn. If not just because of getting knocked off the platform once he starts destroying it. Like, it's really good. But something that scored 22 out of 30 had to be chosen to be the one that doesn't quite make the top third of the list, and, like, for me it was just barely this one. And that's because the top third of the list is stacked as hell, okay? Cecil said, my hot take is the Phase 1 theme is better than the second. Understandable. Robert said, I like it conceptually, but it bores me. I can kind of understand. The ad phase is a little bit, like, empty, with, like, most players just running around and beating on ads for a while. That probably doesn't need to go on quite as long as it does, and, like, nothing to dodge or do in the meantime, but... yeah. That wraps up that leg of the list. This is where I'm going to stop the YouTube video. There will also be a final part available on the same channel that you should go look at. And for those of you hanging out on Twitch, this is the part where you go and grab a drink and stuff, and I will see you shortly.